I don't even know how I want to start this. Joe, for far too long, at least over the last 3 years, we have had so many changes during the offseason. This year, obviously coming with rule changes in reference to the 2-minute warning, microphones and helmets. Now it's looking like we're going to go to that 14-team playoff instead of not even having once the 12-team playoff. There are new rules and structure behind this. What are your thoughts about what's going on with a potential 14-team playoff?
Yeah, I'm moving past us yelling about even expanding the thing because we're already too far gone. This thing's already going to happen. It sounds like this is already starting to pick up way more steam than I think that we want. But right now what's being proposed, which is the whole, and this is so convoluted. This is so unbelievably convoluted. 3, 3, 2, 2, and 1, which means 3 automatic qualifiers for the SEC and the Big Ten, 3 automatic qualifiers for the Big 12 and the ACC. No. Sorry, 2 for the Big 12 and the ACC, and then 1 group of 5 team is going to get in. I have no faith that that is going to pass. I really don't think that the other smaller conferences or weaker conferences in the ACC and the Big 12 are willingly going to let this pass. And that's already starting to happen. There's already been pretty significant pushback that this is not a competitive, fair environment if they did do that and allow 3 to the 2 for the SEC and the Big 10 compared to the Big 12 and the ACC. I really don't think that we're realistically going to get something like that.
It's not. Can I tell you how it's not?
Go ahead.
Because hypothetically, now we're going to talk about this offseason. Can I tell you a team that I think is a really big sleeper this year?
Mm-hmm.
Miami. But what I don't know is if they'll play in the ACC championship game. So hypothetically, now it won't happen this year, but say there's an instance in the ACC, teams don't leave, Florida State's still there. Joe, they can have 3-team playoff-worthy teams. Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina. North Carolina State, Joe, at the end of the year was on the brink. I mean, they're 9-3. I mean, with all due respect, if they win one of the Louisville, another one, like what are we discussing? But North Carolina State too, they had 3 teams that could have made a playoff. What are we remotely discussing here? Because I will tell you this: are you 1,000% sure that Louisville shouldn't have been in a 12-team playoff last year?
Because they would have probably gotten in if
they would have probably gotten in. But Florida State would have gotten in. They would have probably gotten in, but there would be another team that probably would have been worthy enough to get in there. There is a you can't do this. This is why, and I know you said, well, let's try to move past the arguing about changing it, but this is why about 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had this conversation about automatic qualifiers that I said is stupid. At any given moment, Clemson, Louisville, Florida State, Miami can be playoff caliber teams. So you got 2 spots, okay, for 4 teams. You know what's going to happen after that? They're going to say, well, we need to expand more. We got to expand more.
Tell
me that that's not what they would want to do.
Yeah.
You know that's what they would want to do. Now,
yeah.
Are there going to be more teams? I mean, I think what they think is there's not going to be more than 3 teams that deserve to be in the playoffs from those 2 conferences. But, I mean.
Well, here's my whole problem with the whole thing. It's too many teams that are getting guaranteed spots from each conference. Like we have to only go with 4 automatic qualifiers for the Power 5 conferences, and the rest has to be at large. Like we have to completely max it out at that, because I think that, like you're mentioning here, it's silly to make the assumption that the SEC, the 3rd best SEC team in every single season, is going to be better than the 3rd best ACC or Big 12 team. Like I don't really agree with that.
This year, though, that LSU would have beat Louisville.
Yes.
Okay,
but we can pull from this year to prove that point, but I don't think in the down future we can assume and just guarantee that this is always going to be the case. I would rather just be at large and just let the committee pick. And I know that there are all these issues where everybody complains that the committee is incompetent and that they always struggle to make the right decisions. but at least allow for the committee to make the wrong decision and the blame fall on them. That's what they're there for. They're
Well,
they're
if you're
they're
the
there
S-
for that
oh, my bad.
specifically. No, that's
Well,
all I was saying.
if you're
Go
the
ahead.
SEC or the Big Ten, why would you want automatic qualifiers when you know that you're going to get that many teams in anyway?
Well, right. So like I feel like that also you're guaranteeing spots to you by agreeing to this, you have to guarantee spots, 2 spots to the ACC and the Big 12. You are putting a ceiling in a way on the amount of teams that your conference can have in. You are limiting the amount of open spots. You could, if things go really freaking well, you could have 5-6 teams that get into the playoff with 14 teams.
Oh, dude, the SEC would have had 4, potentially 5 in this year. Can I be honest with you? And I'm going to get a lot of pushback for this. This is the kind of moves that make people scratch their head. If everybody looks at Greg Sankey and says, "Oh, he's amazing." No, you trying to do this makes you look dumb, right? Like you trying to only allow 3 of your teams in here makes you look really dumb. Because
trying to guarantee admittance for those 3 it removes the amount of opportunities for the rest of your teams.
Well, basically what he's saying, Missouri and LSU saw, like if it were this year, LSU, Missouri, sorry, you're not good enough. Meanwhile, regardless of who's playing and who's not playing, Missouri goes to the Cotton Bowl and spanks them Buckeye cheeks. Right? Like, I mean, Joe, this is what I was trying to talk about a couple weeks ago about why automatic qualifiers are so stupid. And people are like, oh, well, you win your conference. Who gives a flying damn about who? Because
I don't think these things are related. I don't think that they're related.
They are related. Can I tell you how they are related?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, they're related in the sense of that they're agreeing more with what you said about if you went. Yes, they are.
No, they're not, because this is an extreme. This is an extreme. This is 11 teams guaranteed spots as long as they win their conference.
No, they're guaranteed. What they're saying to you is, Joe, is to your point a couple weeks ago about, well, if you win your conference, you deserve to be in. But
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, Joe, you literally said that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I don't think anything's wrong with that.
It is, because college football is not like the NFL. A 7-9 Seahawks team can't be the NFC South champions. It just cannot happen. A group of 5 team is not – number 12 Liberty is not beating Georgia. I am sorry.
No, obviously. Obviously not.
You know who else isn't? Who was the Big 12 champion this year? Texas. They're gone. You know who would have been this year? Kansas State. And Kansas State lost to Missouri on the road. That's
it would have been Oklahoma State, but
continue to make my point even better. Thank you.
Look, these are not related. These aren't related, because my whole argument was that if you win your conference, that deserves getting the automatic qualifier, automatically qualifying for the playoff. That's
got to be 14 at large. It has to.
That is too much. That is putting too much into the hands of the committee to make the right decisions. What
are the games for then?
They will no matter.
Give the champions.
That is what the games are for. That's what I'm saying, is that you play the most important games. You get to your conference championship. You win your conference championship. You go on to the playoff, and you theoretically get a bye as well, because you're better.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Please don't get mad. I'm sincerely asking you this question, okay?
Okay.
What happens when Utah goes to Florida and loses and then wins the Big 12? So let's just say hypothetically.
Are we saying that Florida's a bad team?
Yeah, like let's say if this would have happened 2 years ago and Utah wins their conference, but they lost to a 6-6 SEC team. Are you going to sit here and tell me that team deserves an automatic qualifier?
You understand, though, that there's probably a higher likelihood of the third best SEC team that goes on to play in the playoff that will lose to a SEC team with a losing record. There's a higher likelihood of that happening than Utah losing to Florida and
You
still
mean like
going
they
on
did
and
2
win their
years ago?
conference.
Because
Florida
Utah
Florida
lost
made a
to
bowl
Florida.
game 2 years ago. Still, they
It
they went
doesn't
to a
matter.
bowl
You're
game.
talking about the 13th ranked Joe. Vandy was better than Florida 2 years ago. Vandy.
My point is, it's such a specific example.
But it's
It
not,
is such
because
a
there's going to
specific.
be
It is.
non-conference games.
That
Your
is not
team-
going to be a common occurrence that a low tier team in a conference is going to beat a conference champion. That is a pure circumstance that happened that
So
one
we've
year.
literally seen it.
That's
We
the
just got
one
done
time that
seeing
it's
it.
happened.
We
That's the
saw a
one.
conference champion go on the road to a 13th team in the SEC and lose.
That was last year. And I'm saying that is an exception. That is an exception. That is not going to be a common occurrence. What if that's their only loss? Like, teams get upset all of the time.
But it wasn't their only loss.
Okay, wait. How about this? Auburn was shit this year. If they beat Alabama and there's a 12-team playoff,
But they
what do we
didn't.
do in that circumstance?
But they didn't.
They should have
There's
beaten
got to
them.
be a form of reality.
There is reality here. There's nothing wrong with having an importance for winning your conference. And I know that we're rehashing an argument. I don't mean to rehash the argument.
Well, you brought it up.
You brought it up. That's not true. The
We
whole
sound like
the
a
whole
married
point
couple.
the whole point of again, we've talked about this before. There's a reason why people tune in. The whole point of what I have an issue with, though, with this new projected
Okay.
playoff is that we're giving way too many guaranteed spots for people just to slot in.
How many guaranteed spots should there be in your opinion?
Four. 5 if we have to be nice
So
and
if you
give
win your
G5 a
conference
spot.
championship game, you should have an automatic bye.
Yes, that's it. That's the most that should be guaranteed. Nothing more.
I still have an issue with that. I still, you know, can I tell you who I think should have the only buys? The top 2 seeds. I think the top 2 seeds should have a bye. I mean, you do it in the NFL already. But
it's a bigger playoff field. I don't know if 14 how the buys
you can
work.
still do it 7 and 7. You can do 6 and 6.
Dude, how does 14 work? Does that mean you have to give 6 teams buys? Is that how that works, or is it?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah, I guess you kind of have to.
Let the top 2 seeds have a bye. End of story. End of story.
10 teams can't play each other. No, they
10
can't.
teams can play each other.
Obviously, they can play each other. They each have a matchup. But my point is that there's no bracket that can be created with 10 teams without having more than 2 buys. It needs to be divisible by 4. It would have. It's 8 teams in the first round.
14 as a play-in. One team's got to do a play-in.
I mean, that actually I have no problem with. That I don't have an issue with.
You know what the ultimate problem with all of this is?
What?
There's not 14 teams that can win a national title. There's not. There's not going to be 3. And I got to be honest with you. Everybody told me last year that there were 6. Here's the truth. No, there wasn't.
I don't think
Texas couldn't win it. You know why? Because they lost to Washington.
I think if Texas plays Michigan, it could be a completely different story.
I think Texas gets their shit kicked.
I mean, Alabama with a slightly better quarterback, beats Michigan.
But here's the point. If they had this, if they had that, but they don't have this or that. That's why they're losing.
It was one of the most highly contested playoffs that we've ever had. It was the most competitive playoff, I think, in my opinion, that we've ever had.
No, I got to.
From a multi-round standpoint.
Georgia, Oklahoma was the most competitive, in my opinion. And then if you're talking about semifinal.
I'm talking semifinal to national title. Albeit the national title game was lopsided, it was still a competitive matchup coming into the game.
Well, I just hate these automatic qualifiers. I think they're so awful.
You have to have them to some extent. These conferences aren't going to agree.
And have 4. Then don't have 3, 2, 2, and 1.
Well, that's the whole part that I'm bringing up here is that.
And then you still have 3 at-large bids.
I want to know whose dumb idea it was to do the stupid 3-3-2. I mean, that's insane. That is egregious. That is overkill.
I don't know. I really don't know. But I do, again, we're going to continue to have these discussions, and I'm going to continue to say the same thing. The 12 or 14 best teams deserve to be in. And you know what, Joe? Can I be honest with you? If you want to complain, if teams 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 want to complain about who should have gotten in and who shouldn't have, well, there's other games that you should have won that you didn't. So you really don't have a lot of room to complain about.
But okay, but here's where I keep getting upset when we talk about this is at the end of the day, the 14 best teams or whatever that get to compete for this, the conference winners are going to fit somewhere in that. We're never.
No, you're misunderstanding.
Ever.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. If teams 10 through 16, like let's just say team 15 and 16 doesn't get in.
Yeah.
Okay. And they say, well, we beat Missouri this year. We should have gotten in over Missouri. Well, you shouldn't have lost to Ole Miss. You shouldn't have lost to Alabama. You shouldn't have, and yes, I'm talking about LSU, but you shouldn't have lost to Florida State. There are going to be more games that you could have won that you didn't. So you can argue, you can make all the excuses that you want to, okay? But these automatic qualifiers at the end, all right? This is why it should be at large. Because anybody can argue if you're the lower teams down there. The best teams need to get in.
You're okay. I feel like we're not really putting like an argument or not an argument, an example in place of like who could possibly be one of these at-large teams that doesn't get in. It's going to be like an 8-win Kentucky team. Like, man, I'm so upset
Joe,
and hurt that they're not getting in.
You know what teams wouldn't have got in this year?
Who?
If the conference would have been aligned? You ready for it? LSU wouldn't have been in off of this. Penn State wouldn't have been in off of this. Let me think of somebody else.
That's not true about Penn State.
No, because they would have meant Oregon would have gotten in, Washington would have gotten in if the conferences would have been the same, is what I'm saying. If the automatic qualifiers were enacted, okay?
Okay.
Penn State would have not gotten in because they meet their automatic qualifier.
That's not how the automatic qualifier works.
Yeah,
you don't just like
three, so the champion, I'm assuming the next, the runner-up, and then your other third.
Yeah, but that's not what I thought we were arguing. I thought we were just arguing that you're arguing for the 3-3-2-2-1-1 shit.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I'm arguing with you still though about you're saying that there should be no automatic qualifiers at all.
But that's what I'm arguing. What I'm saying though, like for example,
yes.
Okay.
Penn State
Ohio
would have been
State
pushed out.
Or Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington would have been in for the Big Ten. Right? Like this 3-3-2, this 3-3-2-2-1 model. Yeah. And the SEC would have been Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss, Missouri.
Yeah.
You're leaving out LSU, who beats Missouri. So my whole point in this is any one of those teams that wouldn't have gotten in, Penn State, LSU, Joe, they beat any team in the new form of the Big 12 or the Big 12 for sure in a group of 5 team.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.